Shalom, want to start off souls by giving all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, Ba'Shem Kakodash, double honors to the apostle of great millstone, and honors to brothers doing the work of the Most High in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah or Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh, and his son's true name is Yahweh Shai. And when we pray Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba meaning in, Ha meaning down, Sham meaning names, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai. Real quick, this is something I was just thinking about earlier on, because we use this term and we know the countries involved, with the BRICS, right? But in terms of what exactly they aim to do and what exactly they are. Right, I just wanted to get it more down packed. Is it purely an economic alliance? Right, is it a economic and military alliance? Like, what exactly is the BRICS, or rather, what exactly are the BRICS? Okay. Just wanted to get into that. So mainly information, and we'll see where the spirit leads. Those will have some precepts that come to mind. So yeah, this is from Investopedia, right? I typed into the Google, what are the BRICS? What exactly are the BRICS, to be specific? Right, it says the BRICS, right, acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Right, so what are the BRICS? The term is an acronym for those countries. So it was originally coined and created as BRIC, i.e. without South Africa, by Goldman Sachs economist Jim O'Neill in 2001, right, claiming that by 2050 the four BRIC economies would come to dominate the global economy, right? And I believe we're far ahead of that. At the moment, I think it's something like, and this is it with equal statistic, because if you look at it with one statistic, the G7 is better, I believe, but if you look at it in another statistic, the BRICS nations are outdoing the G7 nations, or rather the G6 nations, right? Because Russia got removed from the the group of seven, right? But once again, it just goes to show you, you always have to look into what it is Esau's saying, and what he means by certain definitions, because he'll throw you a statistic, right? And if you don't really understand the ins and outs of the measurements, for instance, in statistics, there's always something called definitions. Not always, but there will be something called definitions. So as an example I always give is like home, single parent homes, right? For us, we just think, well, it's just a mum with a utes, or a dad with a utes, right? But there's like proper legal definitions to these things, right? Same with inflation and yada yada yada, right? But yeah, once again, the point is that nowadays, depending on what statistic you look at, the BRICS nations are actually outperforming the G6, right? But just on that note, real quick, this is Psalms 58:3, right? The wicked are estranged from the womb, they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies, right? And when we think of as well, John 8:44, right, when Yahushua is talking to them wicked Israelites, right, he says, you are your father the devil. But one more quick, let me just grab it real quick, right? It says, John 8:44, ye of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, right? And abode not in truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Right, now Yahushua is speaking to Israelites at this point, right? But he's likening them to these Edomites, right? I.e. the father of lies. Because here it is, math, right, means truth. Right, it comes from the Hebrew word amath, which means truth, but he has somehow managed to change something that means truth, right, into a lie, right? Just once again showing you that exactly how it is. And like I said, that's just speaking on Esau and his and his stats, and all of that sort of stuff. Like, I like my stats, but it's always being careful in how those stats are interpreted, right, and understanding from whom they came. Right, doth not the scripture say, I never trust thine enemy? So it goes on to say, South Africa was added to the list in 2010. Right, so now I found this actually quite interesting, right? Because we're gonna, if we keep this year in mind, right, 2010. So the BRICS countries operate as a loose organization that seeks to further economic cooperation amongst member nations and increase their economic and political standing in the world. Right, it just gives a summary, right, of exactly what's going on. right? So we carry on understanding the BRICS now, right? So Brazil, so the BRICS ranked among the world's fastest growing emerging market economies for years, right? Thanks to low labor costs, favorable demographics, which I'm not too sure what they mean by this, but maybe it means age, because I mean, apart from China, which China's got an aging population, I believe India's got a much more stable population in terms of age and stuff like that. Which of course, but which goes to show you what Esau's doing when he's telling women, not to have children, when he's telling, people to have just one child or whatever, what have you, right? That is, detrimental to a society, because then who looks after those old people? Okay. Scripture said, "Be fruitful and multiply," not get a vasectomy and have contraception all the damn time. Right, says an abundant natural resources at a time of a global commodities boom. So the group has a set of joint priorities, which include working on resolving regional problems, right, such as the Iran nuclear program and conflicts in Libya, Syria, and Afghanistan, which would lend you to believe, right, that this is not only just an economic pact, but also a military political pact, right? So there's the chapter that always comes out in this regard, right? Because Russia, although China is a strong military force in and of itself, right, of these armies, right, Russia is a great army, right, is probably the best amongst the BRICS. Yeah, China's got their military, whatever, what have you, but let's not forget that these Russians are still Edomites, right? And what was the blessing of Esau? The sword. Okay, you read that. Just jump. I'm gonna get, because it's quite a long article, so I'm just gonna get straight to the point with the precepts, right? This is Revelation 6:4. And they went out another horse that was red, right, which red representing Esau, right, Edom. Right, it says, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, right? And they shall kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. So, when you look at these Americans, for example, right, you see if there's horse represents power, red, Genesis 25:30, right? Adam, right, take peace from the earth, right? The Edomites are the ones who've taken peace from the earth, right? So ultimately that great sword is that nuclear missile. And obviously we use this more in conjunction with the American Edomites, right? But these Russian Edomites, they're Edomites too, right? And they've got the same blessing. Right? Once again, you can read of that in Genesis, the 27th chapter, onwards. Okay, so so saying Ezekiel 31 says, and the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, right, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Right, this is referencing Russia. Okay, it says, and say, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Right, because as we always say, once again, these are Edomites, right? The Lord don't care about them, right? However, the Lord is going to use them. Right? Everyone is just a pawn in the Most High's chessboard. Right? Verse 4 says, now turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. So return to that Cold War mentality. Okay, so now I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, right? And as we're about to read later on in this article, right? Although basically these BRICS nations generally align, in terms of like foreign policy and stuff like that. Okay, so militarily, there is a strong belief, right, that they will align militarily too, right? And we understand that when push comes to shove, right, that anyways everyone's going to band together against the American Edomite, right, and destroy America, right? Because the Lord is going to put that in these different nations' minds, right? Later on in this chapter says, the Lord is going to will put an evil thought, right, into their mind. So it says, and I'll turn thee back and put hooks inside jaws, and I'll bring thee forth, right, and all thine army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, right? So Persia being Iran, Ethiopia is one of the new nations that are going to be joining, right? And Libya with them, right? So it's Goma and all his bands, and that's Turkey, right? And we've seen how Turkey has flip-flopped, right, from a pro-American stance to a pro-Russian stance. It says, and all his bands, the house of Togama of the North Quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company, right, that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them, right? So that's what Russia's role is here, right? Yeah, they are a, no one can pretend like Russia's not a major player. People try to. Right, that's part of the propaganda machine that Russia's losing in Ukraine, where it's like, no, they're not, okay, because it makes people think that Russia is weak, but Russia is not weak. Because if Russia was weak, America would have gone in and stepped in, right? They would have quelled that thing in Ukraine easily, okay. So it goes on to say back in the article, right, tackling financial and economic issues like reforms at the World Bank and IMF, establishing the BRICS interbank cooperation mechanism. So the Goldman Sachs thesis didn't suggest that these countries will become political alliance like the EU or even a formal trading association. Instead, the investment bank firm said that these countries have the potential to form a powerful economic bloc, which is what we've seen now, right? They have formed a powerful economic bloc. Even acknowledging that its forecasts were optimistic and depending on significant policy assumptions. Still, the implication was that economic power will bring political power, and indeed leaders from BRICS countries regularly attend summits together and often act in concert, right, with each other's interests, i.e. in accord, right? That was giving me the music definition. This is important. According to BRICS, the GDP of their nations accounts to 31.5% of global GDP compared to 30.7% of the G7 nations. So what I was going into earlier on, right? So we carry on. So history of the BRICS sees itself as a counter, right, to the traditional Western-led global order, which is why one of the things you keep hearing nowadays is a quote-unquote multipolar world, i.e. one where it's not just America leads and everyone else follows, right? This is a direct challenge, right, to the American way of doing things, right, with many member states seeing the organization as a way to boost their influence around the world. Still, many of the nations disagree on fundamental factors such as transparency, a balanced approach, which may hinder growth of the group, right? Which even then, that's kind of like, okay, wait, you're saying it may hinder growth of the group, but the group is growing. The group operates as an informal grouping of nations that meet annually at the BRICS convention, where members and heads of state seek to further economic cooperation between the nations. Right, the head of state of a member nation acts as the chairman of the group, rotating once a year. Again, it sounds exactly like these other bodies. Salakia. These are the government. These other governmental bodies, right? Where you like with the EU, I believe they've also got like a rotating head of parliament or whatever, what have you. These informal meetings began in 2006, but the group's first official meeting was in 2009 in Yekaterinburg, Russia, right? Let me see if there's anything interesting in that name, because I know there's also the name Yekaterina as well. So I'm just gonna see if there's anything in that. Would you call it in the etymology? If I can find it quickly. Slovakia. Etymology. So it's on my other screen. Okay, so literally Catherine. So then Slovakia. Behind the name Catherine. Right, see if there's anything interesting of that name. Why they chose to have it there. So move to another tab, group BRICS. There we go. From the Greek Ekaterin, so it sounds, the etymology is debated. It could derive from earlier Greek Katerin itself, from the meaning each of the two could derive from the goddess Hecate. It could be Greek Ica, meaning torture, or it could be the Coptic name, my consecration of your name, or meaning pure. So, not really much information there. As in definitive information. So because of the economic power of the nations, as well as the idea of disentangling from the West to a degree, BRICS claims that over 40 countries seek to join the group. The BRICS announced that it invited additional members to join the group at its 2023 summit. Right, full membership will be granted to Argentina, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, right, Egypt, and the UAE on Jan 1st, 2024. Now, if you remember that 2010 number, right, 2010 year, that's it, to keep an eye to remember it, right? This is a full, they waited 13 years, right, to add, to invite new members, right, and those new members will become full members, right, in the 14th year. Right, you may still be in the region of the 13 years, right? But we understand that ESOL works by way of numerology, right? We understand, that there is no such thing as coincidence. Okay, some of the other key developments of the group include the development of a new developmental bank, right? Which is, a direct threat to the petrodollar, right? So we shouldn't be surprised if these Americans start lashing out. Okay. So then I want to see if because there was some other stuff in here. But I think that I've just basically hit the main points. Forget where the other stuff is. I'll just link Lords while I remember, but I'll just link this in the description box, right? So I'll just read the final summary. Right, it says the FAQs, right? It says what countries are in the BRICS, right? The BRICS nations are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In 2023, the group invited Argentina, Ethiopia, right, Iran, right, which we read of them in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, right, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the UAE, right? Full membership is expected to be granted as of Jan 1st, 2024, Slovakia. So why was BRICS created? BRICS was created by Goldman Sachs as an analytical grouping of emerging market countries that witnessed strong economic growth and were poised to dominate the world economy. The main goal of the BRICS are cooperation, development, and influence in international affairs. Right, which is why it's like, okay, cool. So although they may come across as leaning more as a economic alliance, it's very much will be a military alliance, along them lines too, right? Goals include economic cooperation, development financing, political coordination, social and cultural exchanges, technology and innovation, sustainable development, and peace and security. Right, which they can say peace and security, but once again we're dealing with Edomites speaking here, right? What does the scripture say real quick? So Psalms 55 and 21, it says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Right, so Esau speaks, but guess what? He's speaking, he's speaking wickedly, right? He's speaking in double speak rather. Right, he may say, "Oh, this is for peace," but really, it's for war. Right? Because true peace won't come to the world until the children of Israel are in power. I'll read this as well as Isaiah 2 from 2, and it shall come to pass that, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, "Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." Right? And that's it, right? I know I just skimmed through that very quickly, right? But when we see mountains, that's referring to governments, hills, small governments, right? And all nations are going to come to the children of Israel and be like, "Yo, your laws are so great," right? There's the prophecy in Deuteronomy, right, where it says, these nations are going to come up, say, what nation, hath the Most High so like him, that they have these laws that's truly going to be fulfilled, right, in the kingdom, right? They're going to be seeing Jake shine and be like, look, hey, something's right, right? But another thing as well, it says basically, that nation shall not find, shall not war anymore, right? And that can only happen when the children of Israel are on rulership. Okay, because who's gonna try to take us down, right? So I'm just gonna finish on the bottom line, right? BRICS is an informal grouping of emerging market countries that seek to establish deeper ties between the nations and cooperate on economic expansion, including trade. The countries act as a balance against traditional Western influence, seeking to depend on each other for growing influence in the world. Right, so as always, laws without edifying. Till next time we say shalom.